Mackenzie Schaffer, welcome.
Mackenzie. Sarah Buffie.
Yeah, the full name, right?
That's right. That's right.
So cool. Well, thank you for joining me today. We're just going to jump right in. Is that all right?
Yeah. My pleasure. I am honored, actually.
Nice.
I know you hear that a lot, but I am so honored to have been asked.
Nice. Well, good. I'm glad. And flocking together is that, right? It's folks that we're meeting, and we're navigating this world together with our sometimes topic you join me on, trauma, resilience, but just life stuff. So I'm super happy to uplift you and what you've got going on in the world. We'll get there. So let me back up. I meet a lot of people through different classes and workshops, and I'm always super energized by the really curious folks who get in the chat or ask questions. And you're an unmuter, which I love. You'll ask your question with your voice, which is so great. But I know that we met in other groups as far as training goes. But you're a curious learner. You are a business owner, you're a coach. We're going to talk about the healing and the wellness space and really how you got passionate about that. You're a mom, you're a wife. What other words would you use to describe yourself? And maybe just share a little bit with our audience. Who are you and what really lights you up in the world? Big starter.
Loaded questions there. No,
a buffet.
Yeah, I mean, I think curious learner is a good place to start. Curiosity, I think, might be my middle name. I came in curious. I hid a little bit that I'm kind of like that, never grew out of that toddler why, but why?
Nice.
Why?
Yeah.
I'm one who needs to know the why. For any former supervisors or management, they'll tell you that's not always pleasant. But they talk about policy, especially, and we'll get there. The field that my former field, lots of policy change on the regular, and want to know why. So curious, compassionate, empathetic person who just really wants to connect with other people and watch other people connect with other people. That really energizes me. So pretty much that. Obviously, being a mom. I've been a mom for over 27 years at this point. So good thing it energized me, and I liked it because it's been a long time right out of high school. So
wow, amazing. So you've been on that journey for a long time, and I know I'm imagining or hypothesizing that your experience as a mother has influenced your wellness career. But where were you coming from? What's the field that you were in before, and why were the topics of trauma and resilience and healing, why did those even catch your attention?
I mean, I think the former life, I was a service and support administrator for a county board in Ohio of developmental disabilities. So that's where you and I connected. Thank goodness, because you have been such an inspiration. But at a training, went to a Soulbird training, and that's how you and I started, like 6-7 years ago. Can you believe it's been
a long time ago? Yeah.
And working, well, to back it up, I actually started that job about 7 months. I think they hired me 7 months pregnant with my little daughter, who's now 7, Leo. And we had just found out that she had a brain malformation and that she was going to have some delays. We had no idea at that time to what point. And that job came available, and the stars aligned and fell where they fell. And it was just divine intervention, I guess. To enter into that workspace because it taught me so much. But also have that personal, family, real personal heart to it with having her. So it helped me connect with families and the folks that I worked with. And it helped mutually beneficial, because it helped me learn a lot from them as well, and about the system and to navigate that system.
It always stuck out to me. I knew your role as an SSA, but you always brought more of a personalism aspect to the job, to the professional space, and it's probably because of your experience with your daughter and kind of being not a new mom at that point, but a mom of a young person who was going to be navigating that service world. What was that like for you, or what has that been like to navigate sitting in that professional seat, but also having the personal experience there?
Yeah. I'd love to speak to all the sunshine and rainbows because there was a lot that
Yeah,
was
yeah, good.
very, like I said, mutually beneficial. It was helpful in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
Mhm,
But it was also a difficult thing in some ways
mhm,
because I got to kind of potentially see what my potential and her potential future could look like, and at that time, at times that was scary to me or
mhm.
emotional or all of those things.
Yeah, yeah.
So but for the most part, it was a very positive, experience to be able to have that, and I think it
Mhm.
helped a lot of families feel a little more comfortable. Not to say you can't be an
Mm,
amazing
sure.
empathetic, compassionate, helpful, fantastic, SSA without
Yeah.
it, but I do think that
Mhm,
that was helpful for families to know that I did
mhm,
come from a very, personal experience place.
mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
As you were learning, kind of more about the system and your role, I think a lot of people come to the Soulbird world because they're learning about trauma. But trauma, I love Stephen Portis's definition. It's a chronic state of disconnection, which
Yeah.
doesn't get us talking about big T, little T, or medical trauma, or this or that. Really, just this experience of disconnection. But as a mom, supporting your daughter who had different challenges, maybe trauma, like that word wouldn't even have resonated, right? But we were also talking a lot about how to build resilience factors to buffer against challenges. So I'm curious on that front. How did learning about those topics, or specifically resilience, how did that impact your parenting in that time? And
Mhm.
how did I guess I have a problem of asking double questions, but impact your parenting, but also you've shifted careers. You've branched out and kind of taken your light to another world. Was there an influence there, or I don't know, talking about, I guess, about that resilience journey personally, and
Mhm.
then how that led you to make a big career shift?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so part 1.
Yeah.
I think that, it okay, so having Leo was a journey in
Hmm,
all
hmm,
aspects, and it was a difficult journey at times, full of love,
hmm,
and amazing experiences, but full of difficulty and in some ways traumatic. It's
sure, sure,
traumatic to
sure.
learn, right, that your
Yeah,
child is
yeah,
going to potentially have challenges, and then
yeah,
um, and those challenges, were there and continue to be there. Also,
yeah.
a lot of wonderful growth,
Hmm,
and experiences. But um, I think that by default, I had to find
yeah,
something.
yeah,
I had to find something to lift me up and and forward.
yeah,
Because I was
yeah.
getting through my days, I was, in the
Hmm,
professional space, I was being a good mom, I was
hmm, hmm.
mostly patient most of the time,
Yeah, yeah.
um, and doing all the research and doing all the things to help her out and the
Hmm,
folks that I worked with as well. And I think that it was there was still a difficulty there, and I will
hmm.
I think back to when I was in college. One of my, like, Psych 101 courses, and we talked about resilience. I had an amazing, psych
Mm, wow.
where I went to school, and I remember thinking, "I don't know if it's a gift from my family or just innate," but
Wow.
I knew I had some innate resilience that I could build on.
Yeah.
And so I pulled from that, and I've
Mm,
had a lot of things happen in my life, as most of us have,
hmm,
where I've been able to pull from that resilience. So it was already
hmm.
in my worldview. It was already a narrative that I understood,
Wow.
and it was there to pull from. So that was super helpful,
Yeah.
for me. And
Hmm,
I knew, and this came up a lot in work and trainings in life, that I knew that because of that, I could share that. I could find a
mm.
way
Wow.
and I could share it with what I was doing,
Yeah.
in my, SSA world.
Mhm,
I could share it that way, and I could share it with anyone I came across. Um,
mhm,
Ultimately, I found it really difficult to work full time and
mhm,
provide for Leo after work. and provide for myself. So over
Yeah.
those, 7 years, I would say not to use a buzzword, but self-care,
Yeah.
went by the wayside. And I had to find a way to bring that back. And so I started just finding, because that interest was there already in health and wellness, and how mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, and physical health all intersect. And those things were already important to me, and kind of an interest and an eventual passion for me. So I was able to, because of our circumstances, fortunate enough to quit that full-time job, which I loved.
Yeah.
But
Caveat.
yeah. Many parts of that anyway that I loved, but I was able to quit that job and then focus on that. Then that kind of blossomed into, taking it out to a professional space.
Yeah. So that's kind of what we're getting into. But just a couple reflections. I love that you shared. You had the awareness that your worldview and what was poured into you was something you were able to pull on and tap when you needed. And I think that's a piece of resilience. A lot of folks sometimes that we support or we talk with have such complex and stressful histories that it's hard to find where are those deep wells of resilience. But it's there. It's there in us. We can find those. We can tap those. And it takes a curious learner to listen for those things. But it's cool that you were able to say, hey, what can I pull on in times of distress? But there's a thread here. As I understand your work as a holistic wellness facilitator, there's a couple of different perspectives you bring to the work, a couple different lenses. But this notion of it's kind of a flip it notion. Like, there's a positive nugget in there that you can pull on. And you also know, and it sounds like you teach a little bit, that our mindset and our outlook can really impact how we orient to situations. And you actually have some methods that you use to help with that mindset space. So I want to talk about that a little bit. My big caveat is we can think our way through all kinds of things, and sometimes that can help us, and sometimes it's not a thinking thing. We need to set into the being, to the sensing, to the feeling spaces. But there's a lot of benefit in this mindset space. So maybe bring me in. Tell us about your business, because we just want to celebrate that. You also moved. You left our dear Ohio community. You've transitioned to North Carolina. So I know that folks can find you in person and virtual, but tell us what your work is, and then your 3 modalities: the Reiki, the Psych K, and being a certified health coach. Just brag on yourself for a little bit.
Yeah. Well, like I mentioned before, that where that physical and emotional and spiritual health, intersect is kind of where that all fits in for me. And so I do that. I did a year-long health coach certification. And that was actually for me, I did that starting COVID, literally March 2020.
Oh, wow.
March 2020, I started that program. So, that program maybe isn't transformative for everyone. I don't know. It was for me. I think it can be if you allow it to be. And it was definitely that for me. COVID was transformational for a lot of people.
Yeah, mercy.
So it was kind of a double whammy. And as we know, transformation isn't necessarily, again, sunshine and rainbows, right? It can be a difficult space, but so I went through that course, did a lot of inner healing myself, a lot of transformation for myself, which I think was important to be able to eventually go into the space of helping to help others heal themselves. So I do it through the coaching. And then shortly after that came the Reiki training. And then shortly after that came the third tool in that toolbox, at least for me, my toolbox, which is Psych-K. I think for the most part, the listeners the watchers here are going to understand, the coaching aspect. I do love it. I haven't ventured out into group coaching. I'd like to do that because I do love one-on-one, but there is something about watching the synergy, I guess, that comes in when there's people together, and helping each other make their kind of breakthroughs and find things out about themselves. But the Reiki came shortly after that for my training. And that I think is just like you help with folks with what you do is it's a tool in the toolbox for coming to center, right? Coming to the breath, coming
Yeah.
to a space that doesn't have all of the the
Yeah.
the chaos going on, even if for
Yeah.
half an hour, or you know, if taught Reiki on their own for 2
Mm.
minutes, 30 seconds,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't have to
Mm.
be, I guess, a half hour, an hour session with someone like me, but
Mm.
that I think is really important. And then the Psych K is a modality to really help people uh, get some awareness around where they are
Mm.
limiting themselves, their limiting beliefs, and
Mhm. Mhm.
it's a tool to help shift that. And it's similar in
Mm.
nature that in Psych K we use a very nourishing, supportive posture, and that is
Mm.
where we are crossing midline, so it's helping out with that central nervous system to kind of chill out. And
Yeah.
so we do a lot. It's very conversational. We do a lot
Okay.
of talking about what they think is going on that's making them maybe feel blocked, not so great, not so
Mhm.
um, and I'll tell you what, when people come in, I don't know if they've ever stayed with what they thought they came for. You know, we have some
Yeah. Yeah.
conversation, and before we know it, the onion, layers are peeling off, and they're like, "Oh, wow, I've never said this out loud before. Or I didn't even think I
Yeah.
could this myself." It's a really amazing. Talking about energizing, process
Yeah.
to
Oh, yeah.
it's exciting. And then we take that and we find a different way to affirm that is
Mhm.
more supportive, more nourishing,
Mm.
yeah, and more positively affirming. So we shift
Mhm.
that, we use that posture to help kind of lock that in,
Mm.
um,
Mm. Mm.
because it kind of it gives it some extra oomph, I guess. It's one thing, like you
Yeah.
said, mindset space. We can talk. We think we can talk our way into,
Yeah.
and in some ways we can, right? We might be able to talk our way into feeling more positive,
Mhm.
or shifting our perspective. It doesn't always stick.
Mhm.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and this
Mhm.
helps it stick, I think, that
Mm.
extra benefit of that posture and the opportunity to talk that through. I do think
Mhm.
that this is not just because I want, clientele
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
any means. I think everyone needs a coach, whether they
Yeah.
use
Yeah.
P and K as the tools.
Yes.
Having
Yeah.
a coach in
Mhm.
your pocket in this world,
Mhm.
I think should be
Yeah.
just a given. You're born onto this earth and you get a life, some sort
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
life
Yeah. Yeah.
coach, right?
I'm
Um,
here for it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think it's necessary, and hopefully we're moving in
Mhm.
that direction where that's becoming more
Mhm.
available. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So many things. So many things. One, I'll work backwards. Yes, we all need support, right? And I think coaching. I know coaching's been around for a long time, but I think as it gets more accessible and more popular, it's part of helping take the stigma off of therapy, right? And I'd like to believe that we're in a world where you just go to therapy because you're a human being, right? This is why. But I know there's still
Right.
stigma. I know in certain communities, but I also know there's so much freedom in the coaching world, different than in what be in a therapeutic world or a psychological world. And some people have coaches and a therapist, right? So one of the big things that I'm learning lately, through some coaching is there's no one right way, right?
Yeah.
And I heard that from my coach a month ago, and I just immediately started sobbing. I think my inner child who had some beliefs based on whatever, we can talk about it later, right? That this is the way, and if it's not this way, I'm an idiot, wrong, I'm bad. I can sense emotion, I can heat in my cheeks even thinking about that. It was such an unlocking for me that there's no one right way. A week later,
Mm.
I went to an herbalism conference. I love herbalists now. Oh my gosh. Went to herbalism conference, and they said if you ask five herbalists one question, you'll get 10 different answers. I thought, there it is again. There's no one right way. And then I kept hearing it over and over. And the last time before I read your website, why I wanted to bring this to your forefront, the last time I heard it, I had the opportunity to have a little Q&A, 30 seconds with Bessel van der Kolk, who wrote The Body Keeps a Score. And I know.
Oh, that's all, huh?
It was 30 seconds. But what was cool was his response to a question I had was, again, it's not about, I think it was even before I was able to ask. He talked about, as a therapist, and then I'll paraphrase, coach, support person, etc. When we work with people and we get stuck in our way or our toolbox and we place that on folks, it can perpetuate these cycles of not enoughness, shame, blame, and it becomes more about, are you able to morph to my specialty versus am I able to meet you in your moment? And so I didn't need to hear it again and by the godfather of trauma, but it was just helpful for me to keep finding flexibility, not needing to be an expert. When I read about on your website, you do have 3 buckets, but you've already shared here that this is your frame. It's by no means the only frame, but the Psych K thing, it tempted me to think there's a right way. Because I was like, oh my God. And even hearing you share, I'm realizing it is talk, but the embodiment piece, yes, we need more somatic offerings. We need more body-based work, right? So I guess I just say all that to affirm that we each have what lights us up, but it sounds like a gift you're going to bring, or you do bring to your clients, is let's see what works for you. Here are some offerings, but if it's not me, go find what works for you. So I don't know. I just want to affirm that. And I actually have a couple more questions about the Psych K work, because it was new to me. It might be new to other folks, but if I can bring it back to maybe even some folks who are watching today, I work with a lot of families and educators, folks who support people with a disability label, a mental health label, and a complex trauma history. Okay. They're just human beings on the planet sometimes, right? But I think there's specifically around disability, we still live in a world where the medical model of disability is overemphasized, right? We're not aware of the social model of disability. So medical model is something's wrong with you and we have medicine or medical whatevers to fix it. Social model is the world's messed up. Let's change the world to fit the person, right? So that's obviously a paraphrase. If anyone has more detail on that, they can email me. But point is, we're a difference here. We also have a lot of unconscious bias towards folks who have the disability label. And so I don't know if you see this thread, but I think there's messaging that happens the minute, and you have your own personal experience. There's messaging that happens as soon as you find out that your fetus or your child has some sort of developmental disability or delay. And one of the messages, go to these services, which is great. Glad we have supports, but it automatically separates us from what you would be told if your kid didn't have a label. Here's the daycare, here's the mom's group, here's the play. So can you, I think you see where I'm going here. How might you, what's the Psych K benefit for a family member who has gotten a lot of these unconscious and explicit and implicit messaging that your kid is other, separate, not enough, your life is totally changed? How do you meet a mom? How do you meet a dad in that moment? And there's no one right way, but from your lens, how does Psych K and the work that you do kind of meet that experience?
Okay.
Another big one, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna back up just a little bit because I want to affirm what you wanted to affirm.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Nice,
Psych K is exciting and it's an energizing tool for me, and I really connect and resonate with it. But you're right, it's not the only way, right? And I would never ever state that. It's same with coaching when it comes to health coaching. You're not going to come to me. There's no, and this is hard for people. I think sometimes they come and they want the prescription, right? They're tired.
Yeah.
They want, tell me what to do and I'll do it.
Yeah.
And it's not that simple because we're all individual individuals, you know?
Yeah.
And then you pull in everything else from life experience and socioeconomic status and, you know, your relationship with your mom or lack thereof, all the things. Everybody is different. And so they're going to resonate with different tools and not resonate with others. So I affirm that. I want to affirm your affirmation.
Yes.
Yeah. But to answer your question, no differently with the DD population in their family, their families and caretakers, caregivers, and so on, those that love them, no different, right? We can hone in and get to the fact that we have a limiting belief, right, for ourselves or our child or our, who we care for, is a label of being disabled. And whatever that limiting belief is, how do we want to feel, right? We flip that.
Yeah.
We flip it to affirmative to what we want to feel about that.
Mm-hmm.
And we do the psychic balance for that. And that can be something I always have the folks that could come to a session with me leave with, knowing they can tap into, because you have yet to have someone not feel like they flipped their script, if you will, which is wonderful, but we're still humans having a human experience on the planet, spiritual beings having a human experience, and vice versa. So, they're still going to go out into the world, and the difficult person, feelings are going to intersect with them again. And they have that now as their own tool that they get to walk away with, to continue to reaffirm that. It's not necessarily like most things, it's not a one and done. You don't have a kale salad and you're all of a sudden healthy, right? One time.
Yeah. No, you shit your pants because it's too much kale.
Well, yes. So yes. So, to answer your question, the same as I would for someone who comes in and just feels like they can't get their, finances in check, and so sometimes we hit quote unquote shallow, right? And not that that's shallow. I guess that was probably a poor choice of words. Sure. And sometimes we hit, the core of the onion and everywhere in between. And so you do remind me though, and I'll bring this up because it's just yet another. I mean, I was already, Sarah Buffie fan club president. Before this had happened, I had gone to another trauma training because basically if a Soulbird training came up, I was like, and nice. I think I had, hopefully it wasn't too uncomfortable for the masses at the training, but I had kind of a moment around exactly what you were talking about. That I think we did the fishbowl.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's what it's called. And I was, in the center of that, and so it allowed for me to kind of have this really, this epiphany, this real transformative moment, right there in front of a bunch of colleagues and people I didn't know, that although I loved Leo and love her still fiercely, right? And I did all the things that I would consider to be right things. I was loving her and nurturing her, and we were doing all the therapies and at home and away and all the things. But underlying, I had to admit in that moment, doing all those things the right way also gave like this energetic sense of you're not enough.
Yeah.
And I could barely get the words. I don't think I got the words out. I'm amazed I got the words out right now.
Yeah.
And so that's not to say, never take your child to therapy or, speech, physical therapy, occupational. I'm not saying that. But it allowed that awareness bubbled up right there very quickly. And I was able to shift from then on because of a Soulbird training. So there's good reason, folks, to connect with Soulbird, because, and I'm not trying to make this a Soulbird, commercial or anything. But that's what you bring to the table, and your team, Janae was there that for those trainings. She was she's such a hoot. I really like her. Yeah, and it was a great training. But to be able to have that moment, it offered me that moment of, and I could approach my relationship with her differently. And if I think about it, that moment and that kind of that true realization and that moving forward, I was able to I think it really started the ball rolling
Mhm.
for me to say,
Mhm.
I'm doing good things here.
Mm.
You know, I had, I was, they were honorable, it's an honorable job to be an SSA, and I was doing good
Mhm.
things, but
Mhm.
that was probably the real start of becoming not enough,
Mm.
for me. And I kind of,
Wow.
kept going from there, and here I
Yeah.
am in North
Dang.
Carolina doing a completely different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, all
Well, the
because of
origin
Sarah
story.
Buffy.
Wacky things of talking to each other. Good.
Yeah.
I really appreciate hearing that, professionally, but and personally, and it really affirms. I'm still trying to figure out what's my lane. I value a lot of different things. I can't do everything. Can't be everywhere all at once. What is my lane? And I do think it's to help those aha moments. I do think it's helped to be a crossroads point for folks, or we maybe believed one thing, but now with the new lens, we can understand and change our belief to something else. And I'm just encouraged that that's what was helpful, that it's hopeful, and there's this something about when I work with teams and we aren't oriented towards a guiding light that's determined by our belief systems, I can feel really heartbroken sometimes. Because I think if we all believed that this person had gifts, they had passions, they had interests, they deserve to get all the good things in life, if that's our North Star, it does drive our behavioral patterns. It drives what we think about and what we plan about. But having a guiding light that's so positive and hopeful when the world is holding you down and the world's taking away your flashlights can be really freaking challenging. So I'm even in this conversation sitting with a little bit more compassion when folks can't see the light.
Yeah.
I don't need to sit in frustration there. I need to say, okay, what other flashlights do I have in my toolbox to help
Yeah.
illuminate some of that? So I
Well,
don't know.
and
It
I
excites
think,
me. Yeah.
yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I
Yeah. No.
do
Yeah.
think that for me, I mean, I can look back in retrospect and almost be surprised that it took me as
Mm,
long as it did. And I
mm,
considered myself curious and compassionate and open and connected,
mm-hmm,
and all of those things already.
mm-hmm.
But still, I mean, the first, when that ultrasound was exposed,
Yeah.
that concern, it was hard. It was tough. We didn't
Yeah.
know,
Mm,
the right decisions to make for her.
yeah.
And it did feel like I did grieve. I did
Yeah.
grieve the
Yeah.
loss of the quote unquote healthy child. And I didn't
Mm,
know if I could do it. And I did all of those things.
mm-hmm,
And now, I mean, it's been such a journey that I'll forever be on.
mm-hmm,
And I'm so grateful for it, because
mm-hmm,
I didn't have any or a lot of experience with being around folks with disabilities,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
because we know why,
Our
right?
world is segregated. Yeah.
Our
Yeah.
world is
Yeah.
segregated. And so it
Yeah.
was scary to me. And now, I mean, obviously
Mm,
she's opened my eyes to she's a
yeah.
person and we're all
Yeah.
people, you know?
Yay!
And it
Yeah.
kind of, in some ways, is almost embarrassing to say that it took this kind of evolution, right?
Yeah.
Of getting it. And there's still days that I feel a little, bad for myself.
Mm,
We just
mm,
wish she could be out
yeah.
there kicking a soccer ball, or,
Yeah. Yeah.
take our 7-year-old to a movie, or the things
Mm-hmm.
that she's
Mm-hmm.
not able to do because of her
Mm-hmm.
sensory, and kind of dysregulation needs and stuff. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
there's still times when I struggled, and
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, it's an
Yeah.
evolution. So knowing that people are going to get that at their own pace,
Mm,
but having the Sarah Buffys and the Soulbird teams
mm,
of the world
mm,
to help that
mm-hmm.
along,
Mm-hmm.
invaluable.
Well,
So
and the Mackenzies too. I think your story is so valuable, and I do think, of course, we're walking this fine line of yeah, how do we even sometimes perpetuate that devaluation of folks with disabilities, or pile on those unconscious bias. But I think safe spaces where human beings can feel the range of human emotions without judgment, shame, shoving them down, right? And
yeah,
then give those time and space. That's what helps us shift, right? If we can't feel, we can't heal, and what we resist will persist. So if we try to be superheroes of, no, everything's great and fine and wonderful, that's toxic positivity, right? It doesn't allow you to go through whatever those growing pains are of grief and shifting. And you're speaking to a little bit of what we mean by the social model of disability, right? It's not Leo's problem that movies are too sensory. The movies are too sensory overloaded, right? So I think that's where, as we continue to grow and to continue to navigate, we really meet our young people where they are. We continue to stay curious and open ourselves. We don't have to have it all figured out, just like they don't. And we continue to have the capacity to keep learning from one another. I think when we decide, again, there's only one right way, or this disability is that, it blocks me off, we miss what Deb Dana talks about with the polyvagal theory. We miss the glimmers. We miss the hope. We miss the things that can anchor us. So I don't know. I just really appreciate how I've seen you show up as a mom and a learner, and then I know you take that into your actual work as a coach. So freaking rock on, Mackenzie. It's really, really cool to have a teeny tiny bit of your journey, to hear a little bit about it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It looks like someone was bubbling up. So go ahead and share.
Well, I just was going to say, I was thinking as you were talking about, and I think saying the word, her dysregulation, because I was having a lot of dysregulation, right?
Yeah.
And I'm a very, I guess, empathetic person, right? Whether it's a stranger on the street or especially my own child. And so as she dysregulated, learning over the last 7 years how to, and again, not always perfect at this, center myself so that I don't exacerbate her struggle, her frustration. And I do want to, thank you. You did come for me. I reached out. I'm like, somebody model something for me. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. Because there were just, there were periods of time, her first 7 years, that it was really tough for her, therefore tough for us. So, and you so kindly met with me, and thank you so much. But that leading me into explaining that what Soulbird has also done is, contracting with Ohio Department of DD and all the other realms in which you guys are contracting with, that were you offering, typically, I'm assume it's free content for them by the time, you've contracted to learn more tools or have opportunity. I know a lot of the tools, right? that's the space where I was already living, but offering the space for that and to connect with other people and say, here's, if you don't know how to do this, here's how you do it. But if you do know how to do it, here's a refresher, and let's do it together, right?
Yes.
Take this dedicated time, and if you can show up, great, and if you can't, great, but we're here, and thank you for that. And I hope that other families and people that are caring for their loved ones that have disabilities and other labels, that they have the access to that. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I will receive it. I want to kind of close us here, but you're flexible, you're creative. I know you're resonant. I saw you hold your own chest as I was sharing something, right? So you feel people and you're ready to meet people where they are. I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but with coaching, you don't have any state boundaries. So our Ohio families can hit you up. They can get in your world. And I'm excited for you to continue, not just your one-on-one journey with folks, but the group coaching. What a gift. And I think just the thread I'll pull with what you just shared is, when we can do this work in community, it helps us build even those stronger threads of resilience. So I'm excited for you to launch your group coaching classes. You tell us when they're happening, we'll send it out to folks. But thank you. Thanks for sharing your gifts with us and the world. And I just wish you all the best on your journey. So.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this.
All right. Yes. Okay. Talk soon. Thanks, Mackenzie.